Hello, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to talk about something we've all felt at some point, the overwhelming weight of daily life. If you've ever felt burdened by work, responsibilities, and relationships, then this video is for you. In today's episode, we follow the story of James, a professional who realizes he's losing control of his personal and professional life. But more importantly, we see how he turns things around and finds a new balance. If you want to learn how to overcome stress and reclaim what truly matters, stay until the end. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more content like this. Now, let's dive into the story. The weight of the day was heavier than usual. With each passing minute, it felt like the walls were closing in. James sat at his desk, eyes glued to the computer screen, but his mind was elsewhere. His to-do list was endless. His phone notifications never stopped buzzing, and his inbox was a never-ending river of requests. He tried to focus, but the stress was getting to him. At home, things weren't much better. The constant pressure from work had taken a toll on his relationship. He hadn't been able to spend quality time with his partner in weeks. Dinner was usually eaten in silence, each of them lost in their own world. His partner had been patient, but lately, their conversations felt more like distant exchanges rather than intimate moments. James ran a hand through his hair and sighed. He hated this feeling, the constant state of exhaustion that never seemed to lift. But there was something more disturbing than the exhaustion. The growing realization that he was losing touch with the things that mattered the most. His health was declining, his energy was drained, and he was slowly pushing away the people who cared about him. How did it get this bad? He thought, as the weight of it all began to sink in. The following morning, James woke up earlier than usual. He felt drained, but there was something different about today. As he sat at the kitchen table, staring at his cup of coffee, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had to change. He knew that if he didn't take control soon, he would risk losing everything: his health, his career, and his relationship. He tried to go about his usual routine, but his thoughts kept circling back to that overwhelming feeling of being trapped. It wasn't just about the work. It was about the imbalance in his life, the neglect of his own well-being, and the strain on his relationship. Later that afternoon, during a meeting at work, James couldn't focus. His mind was elsewhere. He looked around the room, and for the first time, he saw the faces of his colleagues clearly. They too seemed overwhelmed, stressed, and disconnected. It was as if everyone was caught in the same cycle, constantly pushing forward but never stopping to breathe. It was then that it hit him. He wasn't alone in this. Everyone around him was struggling in their own way. This realization, though unsettling, gave him a strange sense of comfort. Perhaps it wasn't too late to make a change. That evening, James sat on the couch, his partner beside him. The silence between them was familiar, but tonight it felt different. There was a heaviness in the air, an unspoken tension that had been building up for weeks. James knew he could no longer ignore it. "Are we okay?" his partner asked quietly, breaking the silence. James looked at them, their eyes filled with concern. He wanted to say everything that had been weighing on his mind, but the words didn't come easily. For so long, he had kept his frustrations bottled up, not wanting to burden anyone. But now it was clear that the burden was not only his, it was theirs as well. I don't know anymore," James confessed. "I've been so caught up in everything that I didn't realize how much I've been neglecting us. I'm sorry. I've let the stress take over and I've lost sight of what really matters." His partner's expression softened and they reached for his hand. "I've felt it too," they admitted. "We've both been running on empty, but it's not too late to fix things. We can work through this together." For the first time in a long while, James felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't going to be easy, but this conversation, this honesty, was a step toward healing. The days that followed were filled with small steps. James started waking up earlier, not to dive straight into work, but to take a moment for himself. He began going for morning walks just to clear his mind. At first, it felt strange. He wasn't used to taking time for himself without feeling guilty, but over time he noticed the shift. The stress didn't feel as suffocating when he allowed himself to pause and breathe. At work, James started setting clearer boundaries. He made an effort to leave the office on time, even if there was still more to be done. He told his colleagues that he needed to focus on his health and well-being, and to his surprise, they were supportive. It wasn't an easy change, but each day felt like a small victory. His relationship also began to improve. The conversations became more meaningful again, and they started making time for activities they both enjoyed. James realized that they had both been drifting in their own worlds, but now they were reconnecting, slowly but surely. Despite the progress, James knew the road ahead wasn't simple. There would be setbacks, challenges, and days when the weight of everything might feel overwhelming. But for the first time in a long while, he felt prepared to face it head-on. James stood by the window, looking out at the city below. The hustle and bustle seemed so far away now, almost like a distant memory. He had come a long way since that breaking point. There were still challenges ahead, but he no longer felt overwhelmed by them. For the first time in years, he felt at peace. It wasn't just about the changes he had made at work or in his personal life. It was about the mindset shift. He had learned to prioritize himself, to value his health and relationships as much as his career. There would always be stress, deadlines, and responsibilities, but he now understood that they didn't define him. He could choose how to respond, how to set boundaries, and how to balance the demands of life. As he turned back to his partner, who was sitting across the room with a smile, he realized that the journey wasn't over. It was an ongoing process, one that required patience, honesty, and a willingness to adapt. But together, they were ready to face whatever came next. For James, the journey of acceptance had only just begun. But with each step, he was learning to live in harmony with himself and the world around him. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel and check out the next story to learn even more. Together, we can keep growing.